What's up, Gianni? Marielle, do they pay you commission every month or every week? Great question. So it depends on the company and your sales plan. Some of them they'll pay quarterly. Other ones will pay a percentage of every deal that you close, and they'll do it anywhere from 30 to 60 days after the deal closes. So it can vary. Percentage of sales teams that hit quota, that can vary as well. RepView can give you an indication of like where the average is across the team. Usually I see anywhere from like 40% to upwards of like 70-80%, but typically they want to kind of keep it around like 50% or so. If it's an early stage startup that's growing a lot, you'll have, potentially closer to like that 80% or even higher hitting quota. If it's a more mature company, they try to dial in quotas like a science. So, best questions to ask during a BDR interview. Lots of questions. You want to ask questions. What does the career path look like for BDRs at this company? What are some of the things that the successful BDRs do? What do you wish that the BDRs would do to improve? What improvements have been made to like the overall sales process, and what tools do you have? What resources are available to the BDR? So there's a bunch of different questions you definitely want to ask. What exactly is tech sales? Tech sales is it's pretty broad. It's essentially software sales, and it's mostly B2B, business to business. So you're selling to other businesses, and there's hundreds and thousands of different software that you could actually end up selling. It could be anywhere from cloud infrastructure to cybersecurity to like very niche like SaaS tools, like for example like a machine learning engine for product manufacturing, right? There's a bunch, or like advanced models for insurance companies. A lot of different products there. And the roles within tech sales are pretty broad too. So it's not just like sales roles, but there's also more technical roles too. So there's like sales engineer, solutions architect. Then there's also customer success managers, partner managers. There's a whole bunch of roles. So it's pretty broad and encompassing. When should you expect what should you expect when a new VP of sales joins? Yeah, so what you should expect is that when a new VP of sales joins, they're going to want to basically learn about all the deals that maybe have closed over the past year, what's currently in the pipeline, what does the current process look like, a sales process, where is the sales team struggling, where are the roadblocks, and they're going to probably spend like the first 30 to 60 days really kind of like trying to absorb as much as they can. But during that time, they're also formulating a plan in terms of like how are they going to improve things, right? Because they need to show an impact themselves. Yeah, lots of changes. You'll expect changes. They may lay off like low performers. Sometimes like a new VP of sales will come in. They'll quickly identify the dead weight that needs to be cut. They'll identify maybe new headcount that needs to come in. They might revamp the whole comp plan. It really depends. And in some cases, they may not change too much if it's a more mature company. What do you think about solutions engineer role growth? So the solution engineer, sales engineer, usually it's a little bit more flat. There aren't as many levels as there are on the sales side, but you can make a lot of money on the sales engineer side too. Solutions engineers, solutions architect, they're all very similar roles. The titles change from company to company. What's next for a sales engineer in terms of career progression? Yeah, so you can move up different tiers as a sales engineer. You can go into a sales engineer manager role, of course. Then there's head of like pre-sales or customer success. The higher level roles usually are a little bit more limited on the pre-sale side. But I've also seen sales engineers move into like a direct sales role if they really enjoy the sales aspect. They might move into like product management. Or even do a complete shift back into software engineering too. Do you think the looming recession will impact B2B sales? Potentially. So companies will potentially, cut back their spend. They'll cut back on new IT projects. So the more of a nice to have that your software is that you're selling, the more difficult it's going to be for you. If it's something like cybersecurity, companies are still going to need cybersecurity. They're still going to need cloud, for example. Where do I work? So I used to work at AWS, and then I'm doing stuff with ByteDance right now. What products do I use to stay on top of outreach and leads? SalesLoft is what I'm currently using, and then Salesforce. But then really to kind of keep on top of everything, I'm a big like notes and reminder person, so I'll use like whiteboards to keep track of like next steps just to make sure it's top of mind. Converting open source to paid is rough right now. Yeah, that's a tough sell. There's a good number of companies out there that started with open source and they're trying to get people onto like a paid tier. And I think often the challenge is customers might not see enough value in like the paid or the enterprise offering to actually go ahead and upgrade. Thanks for the corn, Dirte. Paycom outside sales rep, 100K base, out of college. Better to be BDR first out of college? I mean, if they're offering you that right out of college, I would probably hop on that. I mean, you'll still learn quite a bit. I assume that they're going to give you a good amount of training. I think their Paycom's fairly well rated on RepView. Do you consider ServiceNow a good company to work for? Yeah, ServiceNow is a pretty good offering. They're well regarded in the ITSM space, and they have their platform's pretty broad too. Like they have a cybersecurity platform. When I was at the cybersecurity risk analytics startup, started to kind of see more presence from ServiceNow on that side. One thing is like they're known to with their offerings to require like a ton of like professional services, but the product is great. Rentable, a good company? Honestly, I haven't heard of Rentable. I'll have to check them out. Smith AI. Not too familiar with Smith AI either, but I will also look into it. Dynatrace. Actually, I have heard a few people bring up Dynatrace. I haven't looked into them too deeply either. Biggest mistake tech sales professionals make in front of prospects in general. I think, maybe like, I guess there's a couple things, but probably one of like the biggest mistakes is trying to like make up answers on the spot. There's no quicker way to like lose trust from the customer than to kind of like guess and provide an incorrect answer, especially because a lot of times the people that you're selling to have way more experience in the industry. Like let's say if you're selling cloud infrastructure, you're selling cybersecurity, right? You're talking to the IT directors that have been doing their job for like 15 plus years potentially. So if you tell them something that sounds questionable, they're going to call you out on it, and then you're going to lose all trust there. So it's almost always better to say, I'm not sure, I don't know, I'll check in though, and talk to the right folks and make sure I'll get back to you with the right answer. Do I like living in Chicago? Yeah, Chicago, it's fun. So I grew up in Chicago suburbs and been downtown for like the past like 2 years. Was in Austin, Texas. A lot of stuff to do here. Really, the only downside is the winter stuff. But then other than that, it's great. So I'm out by the lake. I'm often on the trail almost every day. What do you think? Enterprise account manager, 81K base, 135K OTE. That's actually pretty good for an account manager. Usually account managers, as you see there, they're more on a base heavy comp plan, so like 70-30 split. So I think that's pretty much what that works out there. SDR interview tomorrow. Wish me luck. Good luck, man. Good luck. The first one's tough. So keep your head up. Even if you don't get this one, it's gonna be great practice, and it's great that you're landing the interviews. Yep. Yeah. So the main thing actually is Azure, and then I'm doing stuff with ByteDance, mostly to kind of like help consult, and they're trying to like build out their enterprise division. I also do like I have advisor positions with RepView and Bravado. Then I've got my own consulting thing. So there's several things that I'm working on. Tom, got an offer for SDR at Cvent, 67K OTE. Money opportunity or no? Event tech. That's actually, an interesting space. There, events were kind of put on the back burner because of COVID, and they definitely picked back up. So potentially it could be pretty good. I haven't heard of them personally, so would be interested to see like who their investors are. What's the most lucrative field? Crypto, cloud, etc. So it's hard to say which individual fields be lucrative. So there's basically two paths if you want to make a lot of money. One, you got to join like one of like the really big tech companies. Reason being, their stock is super solid. Like they average, like for example, the Google, Amazon, Microsoft, they average like 20% year-over-year growth. They give you a lot of stock when you first join, and they give you more stock every year. So after several years at those companies, you're making more money from your stock than like anything else. Plus they pay top of market. So you'll consistently make a ton of money working at those companies. The other way to make a lot of money is to join a hyper growth startup that's like Series A, Series B, funded by like tier 1 venture capital. And if you join like the right ones, they'll give you options, and when they go public or if they have an exit, then you could be easily in the 8-figure range in terms of your upside on the equity. But yeah, long answer. Really depends though. So it's not that you can't really. I don't know if I've worked in cybersecurity. I've worked in fintech and cloud. At the upper end, at the enterprise level, pretty much everyone's paying about like 300K OTE. And then lots of questions, guys. I'm trying to get through as many as I can. One thing to note is if you do want me to prioritize your question, if you subbing by like clicking on my name in the corner, I got invited to the subscriber program. So if you subscribe, you'll get a little badge next to your name, and it makes it very clear. And I will answer see, for example, like Alex right here, he's a subscriber, so I will definitely get his question here. So thanks for joining, Alex. How do you close yourself at the end of the interview? So the best way to close yourself for sure is you need to assume almost that you already got the role. So you need to ask, when they ask you, do you have any questions for me at the end of the interview? The types of questions you need to ask are, the types of questions you would ask your manager on like the first day of the job, right? So make sure you ask questions about like, what does the team structure look like? What are the career growth opportunities? What can I do to make sure I'm like very successful in this role based on what other successful reps have done that you've managed yourself? So those are the types of questions that you really need to place at the end of the interview, and you need to be prepared with those questions too, because then it also tells the interviewer that you're already imagining yourself in the role, and they're going to do the same thing too. 4 Doors, thanks for subscribing. Do you have a chance at tech sales? About to graduate with a communications degree, door-to-door sales right now? Yes, absolutely. So having that prior sales experience will definitely help. It's not a requirement, but it definitely will give you a little bit of a leg up because you have that experience to lean back on. All of like the entry-level roles, for the most part, they don't really require any specific degrees or experience. It's more so just about referrals actually are like extremely important. Getting that first role is the most difficult by far because you don't have any prior experience, right, to lean back on. So having a good story about why you want to be in tech sales is very important. Getting referrals instead of just cold applying for positions is also important too. And then third is really doing like the right amount of prep and like researching the company, researching the tech sales role in general. So that way you can come super prepared at those interviews, because you'd be surprised how many people come into these interviews and they don't even, they barely know like what the product does, who the founders are at the company, like very basic stuff. And so it doesn't take too much to like stand out. So on that, I did partner with Bravado to launch a totally free 5-week self-paced kind of tech sales, get into tech sales program. So it's Tech Sales U. That one is it's linked in my profile. You can feel free to check that out. We're launching the alpha in I think just under 2 weeks, and then we'll do the full scale release in 4 weeks. So I've been working on that for almost like 6 months right now. Let's see. What degree should you get to get into tech sales? So you don't need even a college degree, but let's say if you are in college or you really do want to get your undergrad, I almost recommend everyone to do computer science, even if you're not super into development. It's, in my opinion, I think the best bang for your buck in terms of like potential career opportunities down the road. Like, you don't have to be a developer to get a CS degree, or land into a CS role, but it's going to open up a lot of doors for you. And it's also going to open up a lot of doors for you into other roles within tech sales, right? Because, sales, like the SDR, BDR role, that's just one path. You could go on the more technical path too, right? So sales engineers, solutions architects, and the CS degree will give you a little bit of a leg up there. Is field sales and software outdated versus all remote selling, even in enterprise accounts? No. So actually, I would say field selling is more outdated in SMB. In enterprise, I think it's more important to actually get in front of the customers. So especially like when you're working at really big companies and you're selling like multi-million-dollar contracts, you're going to have executives involved on both sides. Like for example, when I was at AWS, we had like an executive briefing center, out in Bellevue in Seattle, that we would frequently like host executives from our customers to come out, and they would meet executives, from Amazon and so on. So you get a lot more done in person, even though we have a lot of options for virtual. What's the most I've ever spent on a night out? Oh man, great question. Probably, I think maybe like $3,500 or something, or it was close to that. Do I ever take clients out to dinner or events? Yeah, absolutely. So, there is conferences, throughout the year. So usually, if you're at a bigger company, your company will have various events that you'll invite customers out to. And then, at those events, you'll host dinners or happy hours with your customers as well. Outside of those events, it's great to travel out to see your customer in person. You can do that pretty much like at any time, depending on the travel budget, for your company. Do I wish I bought real estate earlier? I think I bought it as early as I could. Obviously, I wish I did sooner, but I bought first house in 2017. So it was when I was 26, and bought it for $545. Basically, used up all my savings, bought the most house that I could have qualified for, did 3.5% down. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I could have bought, when I was 18, and instead of like spending, $1,200 a month for the dorm, I would have loved to, had bought a place in Champaign-Urbana instead. What's the difference between my two consults? It's just the time. So the one's like 45 minutes, other one's 60 minutes. Although, I'm not a stickler on the time too. So realistically, like it's ends up kind of being the same. But I will say, like, sometimes depending on my schedule, when I book it, I have a ton of stuff that I do throughout the day. So, you get a dedicated 45-minute block versus an hour. But that said, almost always I'm going over on both of those. And then there's also follow-up that I'll do after too. Is 180K OTE good for SMB AE? Yeah, that's pretty good. It's you can look on RepView yourself. So RepView, Glassdoor for tech sales organizations, they break down comp at like SMB, mid-market, enterprise, and yeah, that's pretty much like kind of where typically you'll see for like the top companies 180K OTE for SMB. How's the work-life balance? It's as good as you make it. I know some reps who actually like work very long hours, mostly because like they're not efficient and they're not targeting the right people. So once you're past like the SDR, BDR role, which is the entry level role, sales development representative, business development representative, in that role, it's like, it's all about volume. Like how many calls, how many emails can you do? Because you're trying to like set as many meetings as you can for the account executive. But once you're at the account executive level, it's the opposite, right? You can put in like a ton of hours. You can put in 60-hour work weeks, but you could still not get close to like hitting your quota if you're not targeting the right people and you're wasting your time on the wrong opportunities because you're not qualifying out early enough. So if you know what you're doing, you can, potentially, and depending on like, let's say you get up to the key account level, you're only managing like 1 or 2 accounts, and you're comfortable, you could probably actually do, everything you need to do in like, 20 hours a week or something like that. But other things in terms of like work-life balance, even if you do end up like doing 40 or 50 hours, right? This is a Monday to Friday job. Your hours are the customer's hours, meaning like if you can't reach the customer, there's no reason for you to be like online. So 9 to 5 is kind of like the typical hours. And like, you're not doing holidays or weekends. So that's one of the big differences for tech sales compared to like insurance sales, mortgage, or car sales, where potentially you are putting like those really long hours because you have to be out on the lot, or you're doing your follow-ups on your customers on the weekend there. If recruiters say they're waiting to check on headcount before giving an offer, does that mean no? No. So, if anything, that means yes, but it's like a tentative yes. So what happens is sometimes you can go through the whole interview process and they may have like, let's say, a batch of like 5 or 10 positions that they're currently trying to fill. And, they're going to be interviewing, 10s, 20, 40, 50 people maybe for the role. And they do it kind of on a rolling basis. So you could already be in the pipeline doing your interviews, and by the time you get to the end, they might have already filled all of the available positions. But that said, you basically at that point already passed the bar, so you're fully qualified to get a role, but they just need a position specifically for you to kind of get it. So when I joined Amazon like 2 years ago, that's not what happened to me. They filled the position that I was applying for. They had openings it was advertised for like Chicago, New York, and Seattle. And I told them I only really wanted to do Chicago. I wasn't interested in Seattle or New York. And by the time I finished and passed the hiring committee, they said that the Chicago positions were all filled, but they would check with the other hiring managers to see if they had headcount available. So I would say it's a positive sign. If it was a no, they wouldn't tell you that. You'll be your brand. I'll be your brand deal BDR. Check email. Yes, we'll do. I have like a bunch of emails, but for sure, I've got a lot of opportunities that I'm kind of like scoping out for people. So I will. I'm aiming to get back to everyone by Friday. What's your advice for being in a tech sales role for a startup? Pros, cons. So startups, the experiences in a startup can be so broad. I've worked in a 20-person startup, a 100-person startup, and it's very different between the two. And then, that's even gonna be a different experience than like a 1,000-person startup, right? People's definitions of startups are pretty broad. So my advice is, even before you start, make sure you vibe really well with the founding team, because you're gonna be working very closely with them. Especially if it's a smaller startup, you're going to be working a lot with like the CEO, with the engineers, and so on. So make sure it's like a group of people that you're actually comfortable with, and because you're going to be spending like a lot of time with them. You want to make sure they have a similar like leadership style that you that works for you. So if you don't like to be micromanaged, for example, and you quickly pick up that the CEO or whatever might be a micromanager, you might want to, reconsider. How did you overcome that? Did you follow up until headcount cleared? Yeah, I followed up. Like for me, I think it was about like a week that they were kind of like talking to other hiring managers to see if they had any availability on the headcount side. Unfortunately, there isn't too much that you can do. It's more of a waiting game. So, but yeah, it definitely is good to follow up. I would say every like 3 days or so, you probably could follow up. Don't follow up like more often than that, because more than likely the recruiter won't have like an update. finished your AWS demand gen internship, accepting the full-time role starting in September. Congrats, man. That's awesome. It's a very desirable internship. So it's awesome that you're able to do that and get a full-time role extended. You're in the same boat. They offered me enterprise in Seattle, New York, San Fran, currently Miami. Yeah, like I could definitely see like why you might not want to do any of those if you're in Miami. And then Chicago is actually pretty good. It's very good vibes in the summer. Do you prefer leadership or IC in tech sales? So right now, just in terms of like where I'm at with my kind of career and what I'm looking to do, right now I prefer more leadership type roles. But actually my favorite ones are kind of like player coach type roles where you still have IC responsibilities in some capacity, but then you're overlaid on a larger team, a larger territory. Thoughts on career and customer success from AE? So what do you mean, going from customer success to AE or going from AE to customer success? When should you jump from 1,000-person employee pre-IPO company? Great question. So when you join a pre-IPO company, that means before public, your equity is on paper. So it's pretty hard to like sell it unless like in a future investment round, one of the investors offers to like buy back shares or you sell it on the gray market. I will say like the time to jump would be once you have like at least 2 years of equity vested, that might be a good time to go. And if the company growth maybe has kind of like slowed down, but otherwise, like if you're getting promotions and your pay is going up and you're able to hit your number, you don't necessarily need to leave unless like you're getting a competing offer that's like way higher. So AE to CSM. So actually, AE to CSM, you don't actually see that transition too often. Mostly because it is like a very different day-to-day for those roles. But if you do find that you really enjoy more, like you don't like the quota pressure, you do like kind of like building longer-term relationships with the customers, and then onboarding and managing projects, then CSM might be a better fit there. At like the bigger tech companies, it's all like level based, so you can still pretty much like the pay, like for example, like at the higher levels is mostly the same across different roles if you're at the same level, whether it be like sales, marketing, customer success. The one difference is like sales typically, even if you're at the same level, will have a higher earning potential because of the commission aspect. Am I looking to make any angel investments? Yes, I've done a few, and potentially I've got actually two of your cups pure over. Let me screenshot that. Fortunately, my wife dropped one of them, or I think it like fell over in the sink, so the handle broke on one, but I'm still using it. And then but fortunately I had like a second one, but could be interested there. Booked out tomorrow for one-on-one. Looking forward to it. Awesome, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. I'll double check the time because I don't keep that calendar updated, but as soon as I get off here, I'll double check to make sure that time isn't like double booked for me, and then we'll definitely chat tomorrow. What's a realistic comp plan for a growth AE? So typically the real like comp, if you look at base plus salary, it's about like a 10-to-1 ratio in terms of like what your quota is. So if you have like a 200K OTE, then typically you're going to be responsible, I would say, between like 1 to 2 million in annual revenue. And then further from there, it's going to really depend. Like some sales are more transactional, and you can like sit like a 3 or 4 week sales cycle. Other products are a lot more complex, larger deal sizes, and they could take 3 to 6 months. Yeah, definitely. Shoot me a message on Instagram or on TikTok, because pretty sure I follow you. Oh yeah, we're friends. Yeah, so yeah, send me a message on TikTok actually, and happy to chat. Can't get interviews as a recent grad. Any advice? Yes. So if you're not getting interviews, two things I have to ask. One, how many positions are you applying for? So I tell people like that I coach or that I advise. If you're trying to get that first position, you want to really identify and apply to at least 20 or 30 different companies. It's a bit of a numbers game, right? Um, don't expect to get an interview for every company that you apply for. So 20 or 30 is a good number. Pick companies that are kind of like within like the same vertical or same niche. So if it's like cybersecurity or cloud, that's going to make your prep a lot easier. And then for each company, you want to identify 3 to 4 people that you could potentially get referrals from. And you do that by utilizing LinkedIn. You can search for employees at that company and then try to like use the filters and maybe find folks that are in the same state as you, went to the same college as you. So you want to try and find potential referrals that have some sort of connection with you, or maybe you like their content, for example. And then so from that 20 to 30 companies, you'll have 3 to 4 people at each one. And then you want to make a spreadsheet to kind of track all of those. And before you even apply to the companies, you want to reach out to those people, spend about like a week trying to connect with them on LinkedIn, try to have a conversation, see if you can get a referral, and then apply. Because that first job especially is going to be difficult to get if you don't have a super optimized resume or LinkedIn, or if you're not getting referrals. Ideally, you have both. For the resume referral side, I'm going to be putting out some more content on that. I recorded a bunch of stuff with for the Tech Sales U free course that I'm doing. So that's a specific section there. But there are like some great resume and LinkedIn writing services that can be really helpful. Mary Southern at Resume Assassin, I've used her personally twice. Once 2 years ago, just before I got into AWS, and then another one. It was right when I was at like the fintech startup, so that was about like 4 or 5 years ago. And she's great. She's done a lot of. I've recommended her to a ton of people. She's done a lot of resumes and LinkedIn profile edits for people specifically in tech sales roles. She does like a bunch of different roles. She has like a HR recruiting background. No longer at AWS. It was about like like a month or 2 months ago. Have you ever had any experience with interviewing with Microsoft? Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've actually, have a good amount of experience there. So you have a referral, you want to utilize it. Absolutely. So definitely go ahead and apply. They're a top company in my opinion. Crazy you found about a year and a half ago, and here I am 5 months in the SDR role. That's awesome, man. I get so many of these messages right now, which is awesome. So I love to hear all those kind of success stories of people who had never heard about the role until they came across my content, and then love hearing that they're successful in the role too. How much of my consult? So I don't do too many like one-on-one consults, but if you do want to book time, I have a Stan link in there. I just got, if you're in the Chicago area, I just bought a boat club membership through Freedom Boat Club. So I'm going to add an option on there as well if you want to do like kind of one-on-one coaching, and I'm going to take out the boat or whatever in the Chicago area. I think I'm going to do that as like a tier. So I just signed up for that for the weekend, did the orientation yesterday. I got to do like a boating certificate or something before I start doing that. Name of the resume resource. So Resume Assassin, that's also in my link tree. Check that out. Am I still in tech sales? Yes, still in tech sales. Yep. How much do I make? So last year at AWS, with like base, commission, stock, and then accelerators, it came out right at about 550. And then I had my other revenue streams as well. So I think for the year, I did like a little summary in January. I did a post, and I did that. I think it was about 770 what it came out to across all of my different revenue streams. Where I work right now, so I'm doing a few different things. So actually doing like data and AI sales specialist, for Azure, and then I'm also doing stuff with advisor consultation and content creation for RepView and for Bravado. Then I'm doing my own consulting as well, and then also working with ByteDance to help them sell their Lark collaboration suite. So they have a whole enterprise app division. ByteDance is the parent company of TikTok. So I'm going to be I have like a bunch of content staged that I'm going to be posting on that too. What was my level and role? So at AWS, I started as a global account representative, and then went into a global account manager, and then I left as level 6. How did I spend it? So I spent it on real estate, cars, and then I spent a lot on food. Probably spend like $2,000 a month, I think, on food and going out, travel, and then reinvesting it into like the content here. Bought like a bunch of like recording equipment. I think like all my video equipment I was adding up was like $7,000 or something with the lights and stuff. So what side hustles? So I used to do a lot more. I'm trying to be like more focused with the side hustles. So right now I'm working on a few concepts that are related to real estate. I do Airbnb, so I have a couple properties down in like Austin, Texas that I do short-term rentals on Airbnb. But I'm working on a business model to turn those into content creation spaces that people could do Airbnb, but then also have like a full studio available there. So it's going to be more of like a B2B Airbnb model for marketers and so on that have these big content creation needs, but they want to do it in-house, but they don't have the equipment and the expertise. So kind of an interesting concept that I'm working on there. The other thing that I was doing quite a bit on earlier was car flipping. So I'm a big car guy, motorcycle guy, so I love to find good deals and then later sell that for a profit. And there's a bunch of like other like smaller things. My coworkers ever talk about TikTok? Yeah, they do. The thing with ByteDance, they all know it there. And then when I was at AWS, actually had quite a good number of people that would just message me on Slack who never had talked to before. And they're like, "Hey, saw your stuff on TikTok, love it." So it was all mostly positive. Did have like a few like anonymous reports, I guess, when I was at Amazon about people kind of complaining about the information I was putting out, even though you can totally talk about your own salary information. That ended up being a whole thing. That's a big reason actually why I ended up leaving anyway. But so it was great. It was great for the most part, but make sure some companies are more they don't like that stuff, I guess, as much, even though I think it's great exposure. Does your college degree matter? No. I did biomedical engineering. Originally I was going to do medical school. Obviously this degree is not related at all to what I'm doing. When I was at Google, for example, one of the best sales reps I was working with, he had a history degree. He actually, I think he did a high school teacher for like a year or so before he went into tech. And then I knew other people who didn't have college degrees at all. Had your first demo as an AE. Congrats, man. That first demo is nervous, for sure. I remember my first demo was a disaster, but it was like an internal practice demo. I was demoing to the CEO, and then it was tough getting the feedback, but I learned quite a bit. Do you think if you grind it for 18 months as an SDR and event tech, you can leverage it to cloud at AE level? Yeah, I mean, I recommend that, don't go to the company just to be an SDR. But if you have a clear path to getting promoted to an AE, if you can get to an AE at that company, then that could be definitely a stepping stone to get into the cloud side. And then during that time, you can work on building your network with other sales reps within those other cloud companies, get relevant certifications, and then start networking with the hiring managers, and that could definitely help you there. Biggest commission check that I've seen, heard of. So the biggest commission check that I've gotten was like just under 300K. I did have like a video posted on it when that one hit, but I have heard of people getting 7-figure commission checks, closing very big deals at hyper growth startups with uncapped commission. With accelerators, like let's say your on target commission is 150K for the year. If you end up landing like a really big deal at a huge account, and let's say you have like a $2 million quota and you bring in like a $10 million deal, that's going to be like 10x your on target commission with accelerators. With the course I offer, what happens to the bill if you can't find work after? So there's no cost for the one that I've created, so it's free. I think the way that Bravado did it is like you put down $100 deposit, but once you complete the course, you get it back. So there's no cost for it. Be wary of courses that charge a lot of money or programs that charge a lot of money, like hundreds or thousands of dollars. Be very wary if there's no guarantee or anything like that. And even if there is a guarantee, I don't think you need to pay that much. And if you're looking at other ones too, look at the background of the people that have created the course and who's running the program. There was one that I was looking at where it was literally run by a guy who was an SDR at a non-tech company for like 8 months or something, and then he went to go start the course creation thing. So literally like no real experience, but he's charging. I think this guy was charging like $10,000 for the course, pretty obscene. So make sure you look at that. Like me personally, I wouldn't buy anything from someone who hasn't been an enterprise account executive. Even if they've been an SDR at a big tech company, if they've only been there like 1 or 2 years, realistically, sometimes it is a little bit of a luck getting into that first position, but luck is not going to get you to an enterprise AE level. So that would be like the bare minimum for me in terms of like who I'm going to listen to from a resource perspective, and who I'm going to buy material from. Another thing, like why I don't charge for the course either, is like I make significantly more money from the day job. Like this to me is more of a hobby, and also I'm more focused on like brand partnerships and long-term partnerships, and that's why I'm in B2B sales, right? I'm not in B2C sales. I don't want to be selling like $100 courses, out to like hundreds of people or whatever. I'd rather put out as much free content that I can, build out my brand, and then be able to command much larger deals from like brand partnerships, right? So I think that's also another potential indicator of like who you might be listening to on the content side. Top performer at MongoDB pulled in 4 million last year. I believe it. MongoDB, they're interesting because they have like kind of the open source model, but then they also have like the enterprise offering. So like me on like the cloud side, for example, the account that I was on, I mean, I can't say like the specific number, but it was like, I did like a 9-figure renewal on the cloud commitment. It wasn't even like that big of a company, right? The commission wasn't as big on my end because they were already like spending quite a bit. But the first rep, I think that did like that 9-figure cloud commitment, I'm pretty sure he also made around like $4 to $5 million just on that. Arc'teryx stays on, yes. Yep. Do I do one-on-one coaching? I do. I'll do like specific calls. I don't do like long-term coaching thing, mostly just because it's not super scalable for me. Like this is kind of like the way that I scale is through these lives. And then with Tech Sales U, there's going to be like check-ins too. Weekly check-ins. Join the Discord. Great that you mentioned that. There's a bunch of spam on there. I'm going to be getting that cleared out. I just like onboarded moderator, and then I might be migrating the Discord. We'll see, because I want to do like more automation on there. But check out the resources on there on the Discord. Yeah, the Discord's dead. I know. I'm gonna kickstart it back up. I have like a strategy doc. I think it's a powerful resource. Because like TikTok is great. I like these lives, but I get a lot of like similar questions in like the DMs, for example. And that was the idea with doing the Discord, was like, hey, let's like create like this like central message board. Maybe people can use the search. But now that I think about it, I don't know if people really are searching that much. and then they still end up asking the same questions. So who knows? I'm not sure what the best thing is there. Did I leave AWS? Yes, I did. Yeah. Dylan, if I need a mod, yeah, actually, yeah. Dylan, send me a message on Instagram, or send me an email. I'm more than happy to get more help on that. I'll screenshot that. Did I get an engineer job straight out of college or straight into sales? Yeah, so I did an engineer job. I did application engineer. I applied to, I remember it was like 70 different companies. Again, my original plan was to do medical school, so I did the MCAT and everything. That's why I did biomedical engineering. Let me do all my prereqs. Basically, the only thing I had to do was like organic chemistry, which wasn't in the curriculum. And then, but unfortunately, the job market for biomedical engineers isn't that great unless like you have a master's or PhD. And I didn't want to do any more schooling at the time. I was pretty burned out. So I applied to like 70 different positions, got interviews at a couple of them. And then one of them was National Instruments, flew down to Austin, really loved the city actually. And then joined as an application engineer, which was more on like the support side. They had a program called the Engineering Leadership Program. So you basically worked on support with kind of working on covering different products in different areas. And you also kind of rotated through different departments, marketing, sales, product management. And I did not consider doing sales at all until I experienced it firsthand there. And it opened my eyes up to like how very different B2B sales is to what I was traditionally thinking of sales, like B2C sales, like car sales or insurance sales. Really enjoyed it. Ended up switching over, getting a SDR position, and then did really well, got promoted. It was like 8 or 9 months. I basically made it a goal to blow out all of the metrics and be at the top of the leaderboards. We had, it was like 20 BDR SDRs, and they had like 2 leaderboards or whatever for activity and opportunities created, and quickly got to the top there. Was able to stand out and get to the first line in terms of getting promoted. And then, but then I ended up leaving that company to go in a pure software company because they were more hardware test and measurement. Because I saw how much more money you can make on the software side. And then there's other roles. Maybe I'll do like a more in-depth walkthrough on like my career journey, because it's been pretty interesting. Like I've done like the sales engineer role and then the account executive role at like big and small companies. So I've learned a lot from all those experiences there. This one's a good question. Do you have to start with your own leads? Is it cold calling? So if you're an SDR, BDR role, the entry-level role, you're going to be working on both like a mix of like inbound leads, so meaning customers that have attended events, leads that you're getting from marketing, from like email lists, customers that have submitted their information on their form. But then you're also going to be doing outbounding, which is going to be you'll have a list of like potential customers which may or may not have indicated some interest. And you're going to be, reaching out to them for the first time. You'll be doing emailing and calling too. Sometimes you get that list of companies. Other times they just give you a territory, and it's your job to kind of like using their criteria to kind of like figure out like what companies might be a good fit. You build out your company account list, and then you kind of go at it from there. My lives are the best. You're helping a ton of people. Yeah, man, thanks. I appreciate it. The lives actually are my favorite thing, just because I enjoy like the amount of back and forth that we get here. These are all really great questions, and I feel like a lot of people have similar questions. So hopefully this is valuable. And I try to post all of them on YouTube. Actually, like I think the last 2, that reminds me, I need to repost them on the YouTube. But this one for sure will be posted too. And I put out a feeler for someone to help me on like content editing, because one of the things I've been wanting to do is I have all these like lives, and I think it'd be great to kind of like chop up interesting tidbits, a lot of these like great questions, and like use that and create some short form content from there too. Yeah, sorry guys, I'm trying to get through all the questions. Again, if you really want me to prioritize your question, if you do like the little sub badge, I think it's like $5. I don't set the price. But I will definitely prioritize that question. Otherwise, I can only get through so many at one time here. How many hours a day do I work? So usually I get started at like 9 a.m. I don't like to get started much sooner than that unless I have specific meetings I have to hop onto. But usually it's like 9 or 9:30. And then I try to wrap things up by like 5:30 or so, but with all of the other stuff that I've got going on as well, sometimes I'm doing that in the middle of the day too. Then potentially it's like 6:30. That's kind of usually my like cutoff for like, I'm not going to do stuff past like 6:30. So I guess 9 to 6:30 if we go out at the max. What is that? That's like about 8 hours a day. So it's like, 40 hours or so. But there's downtime potentially throughout the day too, depending on the week, like especially around holidays, definitely a lot less volume for sure. If you're in tech sales, should you already finish your BA degree 3 years in? I mean, if you're already in, honestly, the degree doesn't really matter. Like you could still put your degree on your resume or LinkedIn, but you don't have to put like the full years. Like you could say that you attended it. I've seen a lot of people do that, but one thing to add on there, if it's something that bugs you, if it's going to give you peace of mind to like know that you like finished it, and like especially if your employer has like a tuition reimbursement program, then yeah, sure, I think that's definitely worth it. I think just to like knock it out. If it's something that you can do part-time, I wouldn't like, if you have to go back full-time to do it and take a year off, that's going to be a tougher sell. But if you can do like get credits, if you do like remote, if you can get remote classes and get credits and use that to get applied to finish out your degree, I think that could be that could be worth it. Where's the van? So park the van. It's at a lot that I have, so it's too big to fit in the garage in the building that I'm in. So I have 2 cars here, and then so that one it's just a couple blocks from here. I think it was like $190 a month for the parking. Why did I leave Amazon? So I was looking at leaving at Amazon since like November of last year. A couple different factors. One, sometimes, like especially on the sales side, sometimes it's a matter of the accounts that you have. So honestly, the 2 accounts that I had weren't that great, but they had really good years last year, so that's why I made a lot of money from it. Wasn't tracking well for this year. I basically was like waiting around for my commission check to hit in April, the year-end commission check. But yeah, I mean for this year they were tracking like, I think it was like tracking like 78% to quota for those 2 accounts. They're kind of like legacy accounts within the automotive space. So I was fielding different opportunities, and then the opportunities paid more money, and I think they had more earning potential. Is Amazon toxic? That's a great question. It's very dependent on your team and on your manager. Honestly, my team and manager were great, but I will say like one thing is with when people hear like Amazon's if it's toxic, sometimes what it is if you get like a manager that's like a real like company man or whatever, and they're like super into it, they're gonna potentially micromanage you a lot, get super strict on like measuring your performance. And then that's when things can become like really stressful. But it depends. Like I've heard some sales teams were like terrible. The one that I was on was actually pretty good, strategic and global accounts. You're in pre-sales academy, Tom. Thanks for recommendations. You're gonna be an SE. That's awesome, man. Congrats. They're a great program there. They're doing great stuff. I met with their team a couple times. They're actually out here in Chicago. Sales AM making 170K. Is this low? No, I mean for an account manager, that's not bad. Account managers typically are going to be making less commission and less total comp than the AE, but it's more of a stable role. What's my criteria for a good company to work for, product to sell? So a couple things. It's going to depend on the stage of the company. So like one, you can look at RepView, see how well rated they are, see how's their compensation ranked compared to their competitors. If it's an early stage or earlier startup, look at like how good is the product and who are their competitors within the space. Like, is it a really well-defined space? Is that space growing a lot? Is the product actually well regarded? And then the other thing, if it's a startup, is you got to look at like what's the track record of the leadership team? Is this their first startup? Have they exited other startups in the past? What's the quality of the VCs that are funding them? That's very important too. So a bunch of different criteria there. The other thing that you can look at is one of my favorite things to do when researching relatively small startups that maybe don't have a lot of review information on like RepView or Glassdoor is you can do back channeling. So hiring managers will actually do this to you. So if you're interviewing for a position and the hiring manager actually knows someone maybe at your current company or a prior company, they potentially can, they can reach out and say like, hey, so I'm currently interviewing Joe. Did you actually work with him before, or do you know him? What can you tell me about him? So they'll actually get like information, because a good salesperson can like fake most interviews, right? But if they hear from a prior or current manager that like, oh, actually this person really wasn't great at all, they're gonna try to get that information. So you can do the same thing when you're interviewing at startups. You can use LinkedIn, and you can actually message people who just recently left that startup, and you can ask them about what their thoughts are. If it was, because there's either two options. One, they left because they had a really bad experience, poor startup, or two, maybe they just left for like a really good opportunity, but they still enjoyed their time there. So either way, they'll usually be open to explaining that to you. How hard is it to transition from enterprise BDR to SE when job hopping? That is a very difficult move to make for sure, unless you get like very relevant sales like certifications on the sales engineer side. In general, sales engineer is actually like a pretty hard role to get unless you have a lot of technical background or prior sales engineer experience. So definitely not going to be like a super easy switch to do. Am I happy in tech sales, looking to start your own thing and leave for good? Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm doing like various ventures as well. So, diversifying the income. And then eventually what I do want to do is I do want to start my own like tech startup, like a legit startup, not just like a consulting business or whatever, that I would like raise like VC money for. That's probably like with what else I've got, like, family stuff and everything going on right now. Probably wouldn't do that for like another 2 years or so. But that would be kind of like for sure like one of the big goals, because I have one of my like stretch goals, for net worth is to get to the at least like 9-figure range. And I think in order to do that, you either have to be born into that, or start like a big tech company and be a founder, and then have like a good exit. So that's kind of like what I'm hoping for. Hey Tom, you got an AM role at Microsoft because of content, chemical engineer, but it's double my comp. That's awesome, man. That's a huge jump for sure. Glad that you were able to make it work, and glad that I was able to help. Startup or big org for a new AE? So for a new AE, depending on the big org, I would typically lean toward the big org side, because sometimes startups don't have a lot of like resources and training available for you to, and if you're a new AE, early in your career, you should be focusing on like building foundational sales skills that'll kind of like, you'll build upon them, right? So when you start off as an SDR, all those skills that you learn as an SDR, they carry over as an AE. Like you'll still be doing prospecting and all of that stuff. So likewise, as an AE, it's important to build like best practices and learn from other successful AEs. So you're more likely to get that at a big company versus a smaller startup. Thanks to you got into the tech industry. That's awesome, man. Super happy to help. I love to hear that. I'm going to be posting more. The volume I know dropped down. I was doing at one point I was doing like 2 or 3 posts a day, like pretty consistently. But then like over the past like 6 weeks was just doing like a ton of travel, was literally in the RV for like 4 weeks, 4 weeks straight. So it dropped off, but I will definitely be ramping it up again. And mostly because of stuff like that. I love to hear it. So these are all awesome questions. So sorry I couldn't get through all of them. what I am prioritizing right now is, so I was doing a lot of DMs on Instagram. I have a huge backlog. I will get to those. But my number one priority for getting back to people with questions is if you comment on my most recent video, it doesn't have to be even a relevant related comment to the video. Any question that you have, I'm doing my best to answer like every question there. I'll either answer every question or I'm favoriting those questions. I will be doing a video reply to them. So if I didn't get to your question here, or if you have other questions, comment on my most recent video. That definitely also helps from an engagement perspective so that way more people can see it. And then yeah, I'll be doing a lot more video replies and everything. So again, a lot of fun. Really enjoyed this live. Really great engagement. Hope you guys got a lot of value from it. Once this video finishes processing, I'm going to try to post this live as well as like the 2 past ones. I'm going to put on my list. I got a little whiteboard and I'll get them posted on YouTube. So if you want to rewatch it for anything, feel free to do that. And then at some point, hopefully soon, I'll get this kind of like broken up into little interesting clips because these are all great questions. So thanks everyone. Have a great night.